Hello everyone and welcome back to another Digimon card game video. Today I'm going to be bringing you my Hexeblaumon deck profile for the BT5 meta. This is actually including cards from the new trial decks coming up, from the UlforceVeedramon and Gallantmon decks. So we're going from there. I'll be talking through first the deck list, what the deck revolves around, the strategy, and the meta game that I'm sort of building into. So first we'll start with the deck profile. I'm running one Upamon. Upamon lets us draw a card every time we attack while the opponent has no Digivolution sources. It's a really solid level 2 Digimon. And it gives us a bit of draw power. The reason we're not playing 4, however, is the current meta is very LordKnightmon heavy focused. And so I'm playing 4 Wanyamon instead. Wanyamon, I believe, is the best level 2 for the Hexeblaumon deck at the moment because it gives you an extra 2000 DP so long as your opponent has 2 or more sourceless Digimon, so any Digimon without Digivolution cards. This is really relevant going into the LordKnightmon matchup because LordKnightmon, when it swings, it plays an extra Digimon, so your opponent is always going to have 2 Digimon on the board, and you can very quickly strip them bare using this deck's abilities, which means that Wanyamon is going to be giving 2000 DP to your Hexeblaumon. And that Hexeblaumon will be able to swing over the LordKnightmon and sort of stop your opponent's game plan in its tracks, which is incredibly useful. The next card on the list, we're playing 4 Strabimon. Strabimon reveals the top 3 cards of my deck to add 1 hybrid type Digimon or 1 blue Tamer card from my deck to my hand. This is super relevant, mainly because our Tamers are the lifeblood of the deck at the moment. We're a very control heavy deck, and so a lot of our early game is about investing Tamers and source effects into the field and then cashing in on those later and gaining a lot of memory so we can make big pushes at the end of the game. So Strabimon's really good in the early game for setting up that. It also lets us grab Lobomon, who can sort of end the game with like surprise attacks that the opponent isn't expecting. So it's an all-around solid card. In a meta that wasn't revolving around us being a control build because of LordKnightmon, and maybe would lower this down to 3, maybe include some Elecmons so that we can have a bit more of a tempo play. But right now, we don't really care for the tempo play. We really want to gather our pieces as fast as possible and set up our control castle. Next on the list, we have 2 Sayokomon. Sayokomon is the new Digivolution cost reduction prevention card. So this counters things like Green's Digisorption effects, as well as cards like Fuse into the Ultimate Digimon, which come in BT5. And it also counters things like Hidden Potential Discovered, even though they can only play 1 now. Green is like the second best deck in the meta right now, and it still does play Blossommon at 4, and most decks are still playing the one of Argomon and 1 of Hidden Potential Discovered that are allowed. The Sayokomon basically just says no to that. Outside of that, it does stop Hammerspark in the blue matchup, and it does stop the new memory boosters. It also prevents the opponent in the yellow matchup from using Blinding Ray to gain 2 memory. So it has some niche uses in other matches, but generally it's not as useful if you're not against green and you end up digivolving over it. It's more of a meta choice right now. This could be the other 2 Elecmon in place of the 4th Strabimon if this were less of a control build. But right now we're building for control, so that's why I'm playing Sayokomon. It's a really good meta relevant out. Next, we're playing 4 Bluekomon and 4 Gomamon. They have the same effect, just slightly different costs and DP. So their effect is once per turn, when you trash a Digivolution card from one of your opponent's Digimon, you gain a memory. So the more of these you can set up on your field early as possible, the more memory you can generate in the late game to sort of swing tempo into your favor. A lot of the cards in this deck do strip Digivolution cards, and because it does, you will be gaining a lot of memory to sort of play back into your opponent after you've set up all your Tamers and all of your plays going forward for Hexeblaumon. You've got to be really careful with this deck about when you use your abilities and when you digivolve your Digimon. And I'll be getting into that a little bit later when I talk a little bit more about the strategy at the end of the video. So next we play 2 Lobomon. Lobomon is just another target for Strabimon to search out. It makes it a little bit more consistent at hitting things. Because at the moment we're only playing 6 blue Tamers and the 2 Lobomon and then the 4 Strabimon himself. So you've got about 12 targets in the deck to hit, which kind of gives you about 60% odds of hitting, which is decent. It's not amazing, but when you do use Strabimon, You do dig closer to your Tamers anyway, even if you don't hit, so that's kind of the main purpose. But Lobamon's really nice to just pick up off the top. He sort of jumps out and surprises your opponent. They usually don't account for your Tamers being able to attack, so being able to Digivolve Lobamon over a Davis or a Sora and Joe kind of just lets you steal games sometimes. So it's really nice as a 2-up. I wouldn't play any more of them too, because you don't really want to be digivolving over your Tamers all the time, and at the end of the day it is just a 2-cost vanilla if you don't evolve it over a Tamer. So yeah, for that reason we're only playing 2. Next we play 2 Halderman. Halderman has the same ability as Zudomon from the original blue trial deck, so when you digivolve it you can trash 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of your opponent's Digimon. This is really strong. It lets us strip down an opponent's Digimon bare a lot faster, especially if they've been camping in the raising area and have only just brought it out and they have 4 sources underneath them, or even more in Red's cases. And Halderman just kind of lets us pull those Digivolution cards out, lets us get them down to 0 a lot faster. It also synergizes with BlueComon and Gomamon because it allows us to sort of generate memory, which kind of mitigates the cost of Digivolution, which lets us evolve for much cheaper and sometimes free. The main reason we're playing 2 is because occasionally you won't be able to digivolve this in the battle area and you'll have to digivolve it in the raising area, and for that reason it's kind of a bit meh because you're going to be losing a lot of its value. It's going to be basically a 4K vanilla at that point. So we kind of play 2 of it for the sort of option to be able to strip the opponent's sources heavily, but not so we brick on them in our hand when we can't digivolve them into a Digimon into our battle area. So for that reason we play 2. And then the last 2 level 4s that we play in the deck are 4 Coelamon and 2 Grizzlymon. They're both blockers. The reason that we play 6 is because Coelamon is a really cheap Digivolution cost. It's 1 cost to Digivolve, which makes it really easy for us to ladder up into our level 5s on the same turn. We can sort of jump into Matt Galgamon and sort of push pressure onto the opponent. We can jump up into Crusadermon and start stripping some sources. It's all around strong for that, and then at the end of the day, if you can't digivolve it, it is a blocker. The main reason we're playing Grizzlymon alongside it is because a lot of the yellow and red matchups are very easily removing 5000 DP or less Digimon right now. Yellow can use Pikmon and Knightmon and Wargrowlmon to start popping them, and red with Shoutmon DX or D-Cross I think it's pronounced, you can easily remove Coelamon, which is why Grizzlymon 6000 is a little bit more sturdy, and we play the 2 of them so that the opponent can't just wipe our blockers out and take us by storm. Grizzlymon's sort of that extra security. If it gets too bad, you might want to play 4 Grizzlymon, or maybe bump it up to 3 and drop Coelamon to 3. But right now I'm liking the 4-2 ratio, that's why I'm going with that. So for level 5s, we're playing a 4 Mac Galgamon. Mac Galgamon usually isn't the typical thing you see in a deck build of Hexeblaumon, but there is a big reason why I'm playing this, and the main reason is the source effect, so we'll start with that. So the source ability is while you have a Tamer in play, this Digimon gets 2000 DP. So Hexeblaumon gains jamming with this effect, so you might be wondering, why do I play a Digimon that gives me 2000 DP? Well, it's the same reason that I play Wanyamon. So this guy gives you 2000 DP, which allows you Hexeblaumon to be 13,000 DP, which means that you can sort of camp your stack in the raising area, and when your opponent pulls out a LordKnightmon and swings it, you can digivolve into Hexeblaumon and just swing over it and sort of stop them in their tracks. So it's basically another 4 copies of Wanyamon for that purpose, if your Wanyamon goes missing for whatever reason. The other reason we play it is the big tempo on its Digiburst, so you can Digiburst the Wanyamon that you don't need from underneath it, as well as maybe one of the vanilla-ish level 4s that we play, which don't have source abilities at all, to bounce your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon to the hand. So this offers a lot of pressure on the opponent. If they bring out a level 4 Digimon prematurely, or they have one sat in their raising area and you digivolve into Mac Galgamon, that's their signal to digivolve it into a level 5 Digimon. If they don't, you can bounce it back to their hand, which gives you a big tempo swing because they lose a body. And if they have to keep it in their raising area when they don't want to, it can often lead to them not being able to expand as quickly as you, which is really strong. And if they have to evolve up to a level 5 because of the Mac Galgamon, it can often mean that they give you extra memory and you can make bigger plays because of that. So Mac Galgamon's all around a really strong card just for its Digiburst, as well as the 2000 DP being really relevant going into LordKnightmon. Next, we play 4 Crusadermon. Crusadermon is basically the same as Wegarurumon from the trial deck. So while your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, the Digimon it's under gains security attack +1. This really heavily synergizes with Hexeblaumon because Hexeblaumon gains jamming with this effect, so you can effectively poke for 2 damage for free, which is really strong. The reason we're playing this over the Garurumon is it has a regular ability as well on top. So when Digivolving, it trashes 1 Digivolution card from the bottom of all of your opponent's Digimon, which isn't super relevant because it's not really a focused, targeted strip, which means you can't really strip your opponent bare as easily. But the strip wide essentially allows you to strip your opponent's level 4s bare, level 3s bare, anything that LordKnightmon plays and then digivolves gets stripped, which is really strong. But the main reason is the synergy with Bluecomon and Gomamon, who basically allows us to digivolve for 2 cost, 1 cost, 0 cost, sometimes even gain memory from evolving things like Crusadermon. In a meta where LordKnightmon isn't as prevalent, I might cut down the Mac Galgamon and include some starter deck Zudomons as well, which have the same effect as Paledramon. We strip 2 sources when evolving for the same reasons. You can evolve it much cheaply, but for now we're playing 4 Mac Galgamon because that 2000 DP is oh so important, and if Wanyamon doesn't come up for whatever reason, like the opponent only has 1 Digimon in play, or you have to Digiburst it with Mac Galgamon, we still get the 2000 DP. And if you can stack both, you can swing for 15, which allows you to swing over the really tricky to remove Omnimons from BT5, and it allows you to crash into Omnimons, which can occasionally be good. Usually it's not that great. So yeah, next, Hexeblaumon, the bread and butter, the core of the deck. So Hexeblaummon's effect is when it attacks, you can strip 2 Digivolution cards from the bottom of your opponent's Digimon. So that's just insane straight off, because you instantly trigger Gomamon and Bluecomon's effect and gain memory for free. Also, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards after it has stripped, it gets jamming. So if your opponent has basically any Digimon out, you can easily strip it bare and then get free damage on your opponent, which is really nice. The second part of its effect is its main control element. So all of your opponent's Digimon that don't have Digivolution cards can't attack or block, so this prevents rushing, so your opponent can't just expand wide with rookies and start beating you down. It prevents LordKnightmon from sort of just poking you with all the little things that it throws out as well, which can be nice. But the main benefit that Hexeblaumon has at the moment is your opponent can't block because of it. You can strip any blocker in the game that isn't black, basically, down to nothing really easily, because they all have 2 sources underneath them usually, unless you use something like Rowdy Rocket to add an extra one, or you're using Cherrymon for some reason. So like, being able to strip a blocker completely bare means it can't block, which means you can swing over LordKnightmon with your 13,000 DP and not have to worry about them being able to block that. It also means that you can swing at security and your opponent can't block you, which means you'll instantly deal 1 to 2 damage depending on if you have Crusadermon in your sources, which lets you whittle down your opponent and put them on a clock. They literally have 3 or 4 turns to sort of respond to you swinging with Hexeblaumon, which sounds like a lot, but the more bodies you have on the field, the less time they have. Like Hexeblaumon's dealing 2 damage, you'll maybe have Lobamon to deal a 3rd damage, you might have an extra 2 bodies on the board, so maybe they only have 2 turns to react to the Hexeblaumon at the end of the day. And so it's just a really powerful card all around. The main weakness to Hexeblaumon, however, is removal. It only has 11,000 DP, which means it's really vulnerable to being swung over by a lot of 12,000 DP megas if you do swing it. So you have to really time when you bring out Hexeblaumon. If your opponent has something like Shoutmon DX and you know it's going to come down next turn, probably not the best idea to Digivolve into or swing Hexeblaumon unless you can remove that stack. Same thing for LordKnightmon. If they've just played a if they're able to swing next turn with their LordKnightmon because they've got it in the raising area and you can't strip it bare, there's no point in bringing out your Hexeblaumon, because chances are they're going to play a Knightmon, reduce its DP by 4,000, Digivolve/Entramon, kill it, and it's just going to be a waste of a stack. So you've got to really think about when you bring out your Hexeblaumon and not bring it out too early, and not swing with it too early because your opponent can reduce its DP. You have to really think about when you're going to use this card, and that's why I think Blue's not doing so well right now, is because it takes a lot of thought to sort of play well, whereas a lot of the other cards are a bit more unga bunga, you know what you're doing type thing. No matter what you do, everything's going to go your way. I'm looking at you, LordKnightmon. So yeah, that's the bread and butter of the deck. We're going to move on to the options now. So the first option we play is Absolute Blast. This is super important. So Absolute Blast says it strips a Digivolution card from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon. So instantly you can trigger Gomamon, Bluecomon, gain some memory back, which makes this much cheaper than 6 cost. It can be 5, 4, 3 cost even. And the second part of the effect returns one opponent's Digimon with no Digivolution cards to the bottom of the owner's deck. So for a really cheap cost, you can just bottom deck something, which avoids on-deletion effects as well, which is super powerful. But the main thing you want to be using this on is threats to Hexeblaumon. You've got to really, really know your matchups to figure out which card to hit with this. Sometimes you're going to be wanting to hit with the level 6, sometimes you're going to be wanting to leave the level 6 on the board because there's nothing they can do with it. Especially if it's a level 7. If you've stripped a level 7 bear, there's no point using Absolute Blast on it because it's not going to attack anyway because of Hexeblaumon. The main thing you want to use this on is, for example, a LordKnightmon that is unsuspended, so you can't swing over it. So you can bottom deck that, prevent them from using Chaosmon Valderam, preventing them from swinging it, playing Knightmon, Digivolving /Angemon. You want to use it on level 5 stacks so that your opponent doesn't bring out things like Shoutmon DX or Zeke Greymon or various other things like /Angemon and just start beating down on your Hexeblaumon. And you want to use it on things like Raffleasimon, who sort of have those sort of lingering effects that are really annoying and hard to deal with, because you can trigger them with your other Digiburst abilities. And just bottom decking those kinds of threats that prevent you from using your Hexeblaumon is just a really niche, a really nice niche thing to have. The main reason we're playing this over something like Omnimon, who can just delete something for 6 cost anyway, is because you want to keep your Hexeblaumon around because you're only playing 4 level 6s at the end of the day. And if you use up your Hexeblaumon by Digivolving, your opponent then gets the chance to sort of swing back against you with the 6 memory you just gave them, remove the Omnimon from the field, get rid of your Hexeblaumon, like, they can swing again. It's just much better to have the option card to do it instead, and keep your Hexeblaumon around. And plus the option card can become much cheaper. The next option card we're playing is Blue Memory Boost. This is a new promo card that's going to be coming with every single copy of your UlforceVeedramon or Gallantmon trial decks. So trial decks 7 and 8, I believe they are. So this card says, main, reveal 4 cards from the top of your deck, add 1 blue Digimon card from among them to your hand, and place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order, and then place this card into the battle area. So first off, lets you search your pieces, which is super amazing. We can dig for Hexeblaumon, we can dig for the Mac Galgamon we might need, we can dig for more rookies like Gomamon and Bluecomon so we can start gaining a ton of memory. It's just an all-around really good search card. The second part of the effect is it stays in the battle area, and during the turn, except the turn in which you played it, you can trash it to gain 2 memory. So in that regard, it's better Hammer Spark. So instead of getting 1 memory, you're getting 2, and you can sort of make really big push turns. Especially if you have something like Davis out on the field, you can push yourself to 5, and if you have 2 of them, sometimes even 7 memory, and sort of really swing games back into your favour if something goes wrong. So for that reason, we're playing 3. I might even push it up to 4 if it's really, really working out. I'm just testing it at the moment because it's brand new. But it's all around a really, really solid card. I really highly recommend playing the memory boosters where you can. And then onto the Tamers. So we're playing 8 Tamers. It's a high Tamer count because we're playing a very big control-y build, and a lot of these Tamers give us really good advantages to sort of build our castle and keep it up, keep Hexeblaumon alive. So first we have Davis. Davis is a memory setter, sets us to 3 memory, super good. I used to play Joe in this slot. The reason that I replaced it with Davis is because even though Joe gives us a memory for free essentially, Davis setting us to 3 memory is way more valuable because we can stack other memory gaining on top of it and start going out to 4, 5, 6, 7 plus memory, which is just super duper strong. Davis's second ability lets us look at the top 3 cards of the deck and add a blue Digimon to our hand, so it's another copy of memory boost in that sense. And it lets us dig for Hexeblaumon and Crusadermon and Mac Galgamon and all those really powerful cards that might be stuck somewhere in your deck, or it lets you fix hands that just are missing a level. Maybe you're missing your level 4 or your level 3, and Davis just lets you dig for that. Next up, we're playing 4 Sora and Joes. So Sora and Joe is a new blue tamer that comes in BT5, and it says at the start of your turn, if your opponent has a Digimon with no Digivolution cards, you gain 2 memory. So this is super strong because we're going to be stripping everything on their field. Like, they're going to have multiple Digimon without sources, and if they want to play around this, they're going to have Digivolve all of them during their turn, and if they do that, they're not really playing towards a game plan that helps them beat your Hexeblaumon. So chances are they're going to leave their Digimon sourceless on their field, give you a lot of memory because of that, and build up something in their raising area to deal with Hexeblaumon. And then while they're doing that, you're gaining 2, 4, 6 memory over the course of several turns while they do that, and you can maybe make another Hexeblaumon or a backup stack that could become a Hexeblaumon when they do eventually find a way to remove it, which is just super strong. Second part of the effect is when your blue Digimon attacks, you can spend it to trash the bottom 2 cards of any of your opponent's Digimon, which is, again, you're turning anything into Hexeblaumon or making Hexeblaumon strip 4 when it swings, which is basically every level 6. It's super strong. Like, the ability to be able to trigger Gomamon and Bluecomon just by swinging one of your champions, maybe, or just playing a rookie and swinging it and having it strip 2 sources so you can absolutely blast something away that's really problematic. It's super good. So we're playing 4 of that. It's like the main tamer that we want to be searching off for Strabimon potentially. And we want to get at least one of them out super early, and if possible get a second out once the game's more in our favour or even tempo. It's a really, really good early game investment that kind of pays off in the late game. I highly recommend playing this in Hexeblaumon especially. And last but not least, we're playing 2 Takumi Aiba. This is the new white tamer from BT5. It costs 2, and it says during your turn, when you Digivolve, you can suspend this tamer to draw 1. And the second part is all level 3 Digimon have the ability, when attacking, lose a memory. So the second part is kind of nice to prevent you being rushed in the early game before you set up the Hexeblaumon, but the main thing that we're playing this for is the draw power. So a lot of the time your turn will in the early game will consist of Digivolving a level 3 Digimon and then hard casting something, or like a Tamer or a Strabimon, or a memory setter, a memory boost, and not Digivolving on that turn. And then on the next turn, you can bring out your level 3, Digivolve it into a champion, and use Takumi to start digging into your deck, finding your answers, finding your pieces, digging for the Sora and Joe, digging for the Davis, digging for the Hexeblaumon. It's just really good, and those draws start racking up over several turns. Especially if you can get 2 Takumis out, it's really, really nice. I'd potentially even play a 3rd Takumi if I could find the room, and I was before I was playing this memory booster. But the memory boosters turned out to be a lot stronger than Takumi, so that's the reason why I've lowered it down to 2. But Takumi is just a really, really strong card to just dig for your pieces, especially because you're a control build and you're very piece reliant. So that's the deck profile. In terms of strategy, like I mentioned before, it's all about investing your early game so that you can have a good late game. There is no point in rushing out Hexeblaumon as fast as you can when your opponent doesn't even have Digimon for you to strip, or when your opponent has a LordKnightmon that can just remove it instantly. So the main game plan for this deck is to take it really slow in the early game. You want to build 1 stack in your raising area, then drop something onto the board, whether it be a Strabimon or a Tamer. Then you want to be bringing that stack out, Digivolving it, ending the turn again, and slowly but surely building up a board using your raising area and building up an accumulation of Tamers so that you can take the late game by storm. Because once your opponent has pulled out their Digimon, you can start stripping them for memory using Gomamon and Bluecomon, and you can start building up to your ultimate for free. You can get Crusadermon for free. You can put on the pressure with Mac Galgamon in the early game as well, dropping it down, preventing your opponent from keeping their level 4s out, having to Digivolve up into level 5s. So yeah, it's all about taking it slow and figuring out when is the best time to play a card. So the early game is all about getting Tamers out as fast as possible. The late game is all about Digivolving as fast as possible, finding Hexeblaumon and using it to sort of close out the game and keep your opponent at bay, preventing them from winning the game. It's a very slow deck, but once it gets, it's sort of like a snowball deck. You start off really, really small, you make these insignificant tamer plays that give your opponent a lot, and then you sort of eventually snowball back into your favour and take the game by storm using Hexeblaumon. So that's the mentality you kind of have to go through with this deck. But that's the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy the content. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate a like on the video. comment if you have any ideas about what you've done with your Hexeblaumon deck profiles, or any ideas you had about mine, or any questions you had. And if you really like the content, don't forget to subscribe. I don't post super duper frequently, but when I do, I try to make good quality content that everyone can enjoy. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.